At a young age, most of us decide that we either love reading, we like reading, or we hate reading. At a young age, I fell in love with reading books, comics, graphic novels, and it was like watching a movie in my head, and I could escape from the real world and enter any world I wanted. This year, my goal is to read 50 books. Before I was introduced to social media, when I was younger, I would bring a book with me everywhere I went, and I would read so much my parents could barely keep up with my reading hobby. In this video, I want to share a few tips to help you fall in love with reading this year. First tip I recommend is to start by reading a short book. Make sure the first book you pick to start reading is a fairly short book that you can finish probably pretty quickly. If you pick a really long book as your first book to read, you're more than likely going to pick it up, put it down, not come back to it, pick it up, put it down, think about coming back to it, and then think to yourself, I'm never gonna finish this book. And then because you haven't finished that book, you're never gonna pick up another book to start reading, and then there's gonna be one book in your home, in your apartment, in your room that you just never finish reading. Next tip is to schedule time for yourself to read every day. In the beginning, you kind of have to force yourself to read until you get into a book. For me, I utilize the last 15 minutes of my lunch break to get off my phone and just read, and then the last 30 minutes before I go to bed to read. And I usually end up spending more than 30 minutes reading at bed because I'm so excited to read whatever book I'm into. And then during my lunch break, sometimes I don't even scroll or watch YouTube for the beginning of my lunch, and I'll just pick up my book because I'm so excited to read it. To be honest, starting a new book is the worst part for me when it comes to reading. I feel like it takes around 60 to 100 pages for me to actually get into a story, which goes into my next tip. Pick a book that interests you, whether it's a romance book, a horror book, or even a self-help book. Make sure that whatever book you pick up is not boring to you, because if it's boring, you're probably not gonna finish it. I think one of the best parts about the hobby of reading is picking your book. Whether you're going to Barnes & Noble's, the library, or a used bookstore, I think it's really fun to browse for a book that you're looking for and pick something that stands out to you. Honestly, you never know what you might find at a used bookstore, and it might end up becoming your next favorite book. Now that we're on the topic of buying books, it can get kind of pricey. And I did find myself buying way more books than I was able to read last year, which is why this year in my previous video, you saw me decluttering some of my books and deciding to donate and sell some of the books that I have. So this year I challenged myself to get a library card, and I actually went to the nearest library to me, which was only 10 minutes. I got a library card and I checked out my first library book. Which brings me to my next tip. Surround yourself with other people who may be reading, or find someone who can get into reading with you. I feel like when I went to the library last week, all the people around me reading made me want to read, and the quiet space and the nice views of outside, it just made it such a good environment. I also like reading outside and reading in public spaces like coffee shops. I feel like it can be so peaceful when I see other people reading their books and I'm reading mine. It just creates this environment where I feel like I don't want to be scrolling on my phone because I don't want people to see me sitting there on my phone. I don't know if that's a bad way to look at it, because you honestly shouldn't care what people think. But for some reason, going outside to read just helps me. I don't know, maybe it might help you too. Not only that, but finding other people who like to read and reading with them, or trying to get someone to read the same book as you, can be really exciting. You can talk about the story, you can talk trash about the characters you don't like. It just makes it so much better, I feel, when there is someone who's also reading and you guys can talk about the books you're reading and trade, or read the same book at the same time. And my last tip, which also happens to be my biggest tip, is do not force yourself to finish a book that you do not like. Do not waste your time forcing yourself to read something that's not interesting to you. Do not force yourself to try and finish a book just because you started it and you told people you were reading it. If you do not like what you're reading, just put it down, give it to someone else, or return it. And I tell you this because I've spent so much time forcing myself to read a book that I know I didn't like. It literally just takes up so much of your time when you could be reading another book, when you could have picked up another book. When the next book you're gonna read is gonna be your favorite book, and the sooner you put that awful trash down, the sooner you can read that other book. Today is January 23rd, and I've already completed 2 books this year. The first book I read was The Immortal Dark by Tejas Gurma. I honestly gave this book a 3 out of 5 stars. I liked the storyline about black vampires, and I really wish I could have gotten more into it because all the themes within the book sounded so exciting for me, but I just couldn't get into it and like the main character. I was able to finish the book, but I didn't like the main character and it wasn't really that good of a story for me. However, if a second book does come out, I am interested in finishing it. I do want to know how the story ends and where it goes because we were left on the cliffhanger in this book. And remember how I said I wanted to read more manga? Well, the second book I read this year was Sakamoto Days. And actually, this is one of my boyfriend's books that he reads these mangas, and I think he has like 4 or 5. So I'm going to be slowly borrowing his books and reading this. And the book I'm currently reading, you actually saw in this video, which is The Four Agreements. Now, I can't remember exactly how many years ago it was, but I read this book before and I've decided to reread it because I believe The Four Agreements is a great way to start off your year. I'm not going to go into exactly what the 4 agreements are. Honestly, this book is kind of hard to explain, but I feel like this sentence sums it up. The 4 agreements offered a powerful code of conduct that can rapidly transform our lives to new experience of freedom, true happiness, and love. And I feel like who doesn't want to start off their year like that, right? I think The Four Agreements is a quick, easy read that obviously is nonfiction. It's not fake, it's steps to really just get yourself aligned, I feel like, mentally. So I hope this video is able to show you how easy it is to read 3 books in 1 month, 3 very different kinds of books, and hopefully you give some of my tips a try and you fall in love with reading. If you stay to the end, please like, subscribe, and leave me a comment. Right now, in this time period, in this point in your life, do you love reading, do you like reading, or do you hate reading? I want to know. Thanks for watching. Bye!